Good afternoon, dear students. Today's lecture is devoted to the direct method. I want to mention you that the direct method is also one of the traditional methods. It was enforced at the beginning of the 20th century, and students' own language were banished, and everything was to be done through the language of instruction. Translation was considered taboo and established a concept of second language acquisition very different from grammar translation method. It was revived as a method when the goal of instruction became learning how to use a foreign language to communicate. It got its name from the fact that meaning is to be directly connected with a Tajik language without translation, and it became popular because grammar translation method was not very effective in preparing students to use language communicatively. Do you remember we talked last lecture about grammar translation method, and we talk about the disadvantages, the drawbacks of grammar translation method. Grammar translation method is focused more on reading and translating, and does not develop such skills as speaking and listening. And the direct method, it is more focused on communicative aspect. Next, the principles of the direct method. The goals of teachers who use the direct method is to make students learn how to communicate in the Tajik language. The role of the teacher is to direct students' activity, and the role of student is less passive than in the grammar translation method. Both teacher and students work as partners in teaching-learning process. Interaction between students and teacher is teacher-directed. Students converse with each other as well. Vocabulary is emphasized over grammar, and oral communication is seen as basic, and meaning is demonstrated through realia, pictures, and pantomime. Language is primarily spoken, not written. The teacher tries to get students to self-correct whenever possible, and syllabus is based on situations. The third method of traditional approach, it is the audiolingual method, and like the direct method, it has a role different from grammar translation method. It was developed in the United States of America during the World War II, and it was based on the behavioral psychology. Some principles are similar to the direct method, but many are different, having been based on the concept of behaviorism and descriptivism. Behaviorism and descriptivism, they are concepts of psychology, and audiolingual methods. The emergence of audiolingual methods resulted from the increased attention given to foreign language teaching in the United States. Toward the end of the 1950s, the need for a radical change and rethinking of foreign language teaching methodology was prompted by the launching of the first Russian satellite in 1957. The United States government acknowledged the need for a more intensive effort to teach foreign languages in order to prevent Americans from becoming isolated from scientific advances made by other countries. The National Defense Education Act in 1958, among other measures, provided funds for the study and analysis of modern languages, for the development of teaching materials, and for the training of teachers. The method was widely adopted for teaching foreign languages in North America colleges and universities. It provided the methodological foundation for materials for teaching of foreign languages at college and university level in the United States and Canada, and its principles formed the basis of such widely used series. Although the method began to fall from favor in the late 60s, audiolingualism and materials based on the audiolingual principle continue to be widely used today. The theory of language underlying audiolingualism was derived from view proposed by American linguists in 1950s, a view that came to be known as structural linguistics. Linguistics had emerged as a flourishing academic discipline in the 1950s, and the structural theory of language constituted its backbone. And the important tenet of structural linguistics was that the primary medium of language is oral. Speech is language. Since many languages do not have a written form, and we learn to speak before we learn to read or write, it was argued that language is primarily what is spoken and only secondarily what is written. It is the expression of Brooks, one of the linguists, in 1964. Lingualism is based on behaviorist theory of learning. Foreign language learning is basically a process of mechanical habit formation. Good habits are formed by giving correct responses rather than by making mistakes. By memorizing dialogues and performing pattern drills, the chances of producing mistakes are minimized. Language is a verbal behavior, that is, the automatic production and comprehension of utterances, and can be learned by inducing the students to do likewise. According to the principles of the audiolingual message, the meaning that the words of the language have for the native speaker can be learned only in linguistic and cultural context, and not in isolation. Teaching a language involves teaching aspects of the cultural system of people who speak the language. Drills in audiolingual message. Drills and patterns practice are typical. Repetition. The students repeat an utterance as soon as he hears it. Inflection. One word in sentence appears in another form when repeated. Replacement. One word is replaced by another. Restatement. The student rephrase an utterance. For example, examples of drills. Teacher. Teacher says, I ate sandwich, and student, I ate the sandwiches. Teacher, he bought the car for half price, and the student, he bought it. He replaced the car by the preposition by the not preposition, pronoun it for the half price. Teacher, tell me not to smoke so often. The students use imperative sentence, don't smoke so often. Then the following examples illustrate how more than one sort of drill can be incorporated into one practice session. What the example? There is a cup on the table. There is a cup on the table. Spoon. There is a spoon on the table. Book. There is a book on the table. On the chair. There is a book on the chair. Advantages of this method. Listening and speaking skills are emphasized, and especially the former rigorously developed. The former, it means speaking. Yeah? The use of visual aids is effective in vocabulary teaching, and the method is as functional and easy to execute for large groups. Correct pronunciation and structure are emphasized and acquired, and it is grounded on a solid theory of language learning. These are the advantages of audiolingual method. What are the disadvantages? The behaviorist approach to learning is now discredited. Many scholars have proved its weaknesses. What are they? It doesn't pay sufficient attention to communicative competence. Then, only language form is considered while meaning is neglected. Then, equal importance is not given to all four skills. What four skills should we focus on? They are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Then it is a teacher-dominated method. Next disadvantage, it is a mechanical method since it demands pattern practice, drilling, memorizing over functional learning, and organic usage. The learner is in passive role the learner has little control over the learning. These are the disadvantages of audiolingual method. Thank you very much for your attention.